file, and we're going to be using NBA statistics from a couple of years ago. And we're going to be using this very large data set to do some analysis on the data, create some graphs, and also to work with some features that we haven't worked with yet this year, looking at how to manipulate the data to show what we want. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new sheet and put some of the data that's in here over into that new sheet just to get it out of our way. So the sheet's already created down at the bottom called sheet 2, but we can create as many sheets as we want within a spreadsheet file. And what that allows us to do is just to, rather than making a new file, we can actually have several of these kind of like tabs in Chrome open within the spreadsheets, and that allows us to move some of the data around. But because it's in one file, it actually can allow us to connect to data across sheets with our equations. But right now, we're just going to use it as a holding spot for some of our information. So on the right-hand side here, we have this legend data. So we're just going to get rid of that, and we're going to put that into that separate sheet because I don't want that in here. It's just kind of in the way, but it does give some useful information about what the information there means. So I'm just going to select all of that, and I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to go into sheet 2, and I'm going to paste it. So that's over there. And down at the bottom, I'm going to change the name of these sheets to show me what they're actually showing. So I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to call that legend. I'm going to go over to sheet 1, and I'm going to call this one stats. Now, what we eventually want to have with this data set is, you can see I've removed the points per game. So we're going to be calculating that using equations in one of the later assignments. We're also going to be looking at some of the defensive statistics as well and filtering. But for today, the other thing that we're going to be doing is we need to split up these names. Right now, these names are all in one cell, which means that if I wanted to sort them by last name, it would be impossible, because right now it's showing first name first. So I could sort by the first name, but I can't sort by last name. And traditionally, you want to be able to sort your data by last name and keep the names separately. So we're going to split this data up. I'm going to show you how to do that. So splitting the data up in a spreadsheet is a very easy thing to do, but there are some catches and issues with it because what happens is, for some reason, and I don't know why, both in Excel and in Sheets in Google, when you split your text data into multiple cells, it doesn't create the cells for you. It just copies right over whatever's there. So we need to make room for this data to show up. And so we need to insert some cells, insert some rows next to these ones, or some columns. So let's go here to this one, and we're going to insert one to the right of this. So now we have a spot for those last names to go. So you have first names here, last names here. Except some of the people have more than one last name, or they have like middle names and they're counting them as last names. So what we need to do is make some more room. Now, I already tested this, so I know how many cells I need. So I need to insert another couple of cells, another couple of columns there in order to have room for it all. Because some people have, say, a middle name and a last name, and then some people actually have two last names. So we're going to insert another cell to the right here, up at the top, two-finger click or right-click if you have a mouse, and insert another one to the right. And I think that's enough, but let's just insert another one just to be safe. So now we have 3 cells to make room for all the data that's going to be moving over from here. And the hyphenated names, like this one here, Akun Purcell, they're hyphenated, so it's going to treat them as one name unless I tell them not to. We're just going to divide them by space. So I'm going to click on this cell, and I'm going to go up to Data, and I'm going to go down to Split Text to Columns. And what that's going to do is it's going to split the text based on some delineation that I give it into the columns that I have there. So I click on that, and then it says, hey, what are we using to separate it? So I could use something else. I could customize and say use a dash. I could tell it to detect it automatically, or sometimes this data comes, depending on where you got it from, with a comma between each thing, semicolon, or a period, but we are going to use a space because it's the difference between the first name and last name and multiple last names is that they're typed in with a space in between. So I click space, and now I can see I've got my first name and I've got my last name. But then here, if I go down, I can see that there is, like, for example, Marvin Begley the third, and the fourth for Baldwin, And then we've got junior, third. No, we got a bunch of juniors. And here is another one. So there's this one here, Emba Almut. Okay, there are 3 last names. And we have a number of other, lots of juniors. Okay, and that's it. Right, so we'll get back up here. And so now we've got them all separated, but now we have another problem. We have them separated across a bunch of cells, and we want them all to be in one cell. So now what we're going to be doing is using a new equation, at least new to anyone who didn't take Business Tech 11. And that is that we are going to be putting these last name cells back together. So I'm going to insert another column to the right. And in here, I'm going to use an equation called concatenate. So what concatenate does is it will allow us to put these cells back together. So we've broken them up, and now we're putting the ones that we want together back together. So it's equals concatenate like that. And we got to tell it where we're getting the data from that we want to stick back together. So we're going to get it from, make sure you're in the same row. So I'm going to get it from B2 if I have the equation in the 2 row. And then I'm going to go comma. This is where it gets interesting. Quote, space, quote. And what that allows us to do is to put a space in between. If there are several last names, is to put a space in between them, which there should be. Otherwise, it just jams the text together, and we don't want that. So we're going to go B2, comma, quote, space, quote, comma, and then we're going to click on C2, same thing, comma, quote, space, quote, comma, and then D2. And now we don't need to put in the space again because there's nothing after that we need a space for. So then we just press enter, and there's our equation. Okay, and you can see for this one, it did absolutely nothing because it didn't need to do anything there because it was only one last name. But if we scroll down until we get to somebody with a last name, so we got 2 there, but let's get down to Almut. Scrolling, 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 scrolling. There we go. Oh, almost went past them. Okay, so I'll let that go there. And now you can see it's combined those so that it's put those 3 together, Emba, Almut, and they're all together with a space between them. And I'm going to keep copying this down for the rest of the sheet, down all the way down to almost, I think, 600 or 700 cells. Let's go scrolling, scrolling. Oh, too far. Go up, there we go. So all the way down to here. Okay, and so there we go. And you see some of the players there twice, and that's because if they got traded that season, they would have stats with 2 different teams, possibly 3 for some people, I think. So now we have that done. So now we have our last names put back together. I'm going to go back up to the top. All right, so now I don't need these 3 cells, so I can get rid of them. But if I do get rid of them, it's going to erase this. If I get rid of this cell here, if I delete this, okay, all of a sudden I get an error message here. And the reason is because this is an equation. I don't want this to be an equation. Okay, I want this just to be their names. But right now it's an equation, concatenate B2 space C2 space D2. So whatever I put in here, if I change this to something else, okay, that becomes something else. So don't want to do that. I want to leave him with his given last name. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of the equation and keep the information. And to be able to do that, what you have to do is we're going to copy this whole column, copy that, and we're going to paste it over here, but we're going to go to paste special. So we 2-finger click at the top of that row, paste special, and we're going to use something called paste values only. And that paste values only allows you to get the answer from the equation and get rid of the equation. So we're going to paste that. Now we have our answers. Okay, and I'm going to put in here first name, and I'm going to put in here last name, and then I'm going to get rid of the data that I no longer need, these 3 columns here. So I'm going to select those 3 columns, and I'm going to delete those columns. And now I have first name, last name, and I have all my information there. And the last thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a sort, and I'm going to sort them by team and sort them by last name. So I'm going to select the whole data set by clicking up here, and I'm going to go to data, sort range. I'm going to tell it that it has a header row because it does. And I'm going to sort it first by team. And then I'm going to add another sort. And I'm going to sort it by last name now. So I have sorted by team and then sorted by last name alphabetically. Click on that and et voila, here we go. So now we have all the teams sorted by team alphabetically and then within the team sorted alphabetically by last name. Right, when you get that done, you're all done for this assignment. You can turn this in, but then like our other ones, before you start the next one, you'll need to make a copy of this one and attach it to the next one. All right, good luck. Questions, email me.